They warned him, never touch family. But the drug dealer didn't listen. He kidnapped the daughter of an MC president, and that single mistake lit a fire that the entire city felt. The city's industrial district slept uneasily under a sky split by neon lightning. Old warehouses, graffiti-scarred walls, shattered windows. This was the kind of place where people vanished without anyone asking why. And inside one of those forgotten buildings, a young girl sat tied to a steel chair, her wrists scraped, her breath thin, her eyes swollen from crying. She was the daughter of the most feared man in the state. But tonight, she felt like just another victim. Her father, the president of the Iron Serpents Motorcycle Club, had always told her one thing. If you're ever in danger, don't scream. We feel your pain. But fear doesn't listen to wisdom. Fear listens only to shadows. She tried to keep quiet, but when the drug dealer's boots echoed toward her again, she broke. A small, shaky cry slipped out, soft, trembling, but enough to echo through the hollow building. Outside, under the rain-soaked streetlight, a lone biker stood with his helmet in his hands. He wasn't her father, but he felt the same snap inside as if she were his own blood. He had picked up her last text, one unfinished message she never got to send. Something's wrong. Men following me. The moment he saw those words, his jaw tightened. He didn't need instructions. He didn't need backup. But the truth was, this time, the pain wasn't just hers. It was the entire club's. Within minutes, bikes began arriving one by one, engines rumbling low like angry thunder, leather jackets glistening under the rain, 30 men standing in absolute silence, eyes dark, fists clenched. Then the club president arrived. He stepped off his bike slowly, rain dripping off his beard. There was no shouting, no panic, no emotion visible on his face. Just a quiet, heavy rage that made even his own men take half a step back. He held the girl's broken silver bracelet in his palm, the one they found near her abandoned phone. His voice was low, almost a whisper. They took my daughter. For money. A pause. Then his eyes turned to steel. Tonight we take everything from them. The bikers didn't cheer, they didn't speak. They just nodded. Because when someone crosses a line with an MC, the story changes. When someone touches family, and tonight, the rain stopped as if the night itself held its breath. A long line of bikes crawled through the empty industrial roads. No headlights, no talking, just silent engines rolling like a funeral procession of wolves. The club didn't move fast. They didn't need speed. They needed precision. The president led them on foot toward the warehouse district. Every step was measured, controlled, deadly. His boots crushed broken glass beneath him, each crack echoing like a countdown. Beside him walked the vice president, massive frame, cold eyes, fists wrapped in leather. Behind them moved the rest of the brothers, fanning out like shadows. They reached the first warehouse. The place reeked of chemicals, smoke, and fear. A perfect hideout for men foolish enough to touch a biker's child. The president raised his fist. Everyone froze. Inside, muffled laughs bled through the walls. Men, drug runners, celebrating their big catch. A deal worth a fortune, or so they thought. The president stepped forward and leaned his ear against the rusted metal door. He heard the worst sound a father could ever hear, his daughter's choked sob. His jaw tightened, knuckles cracked. A vein near his temple pulsed like a ticking bomb. The vice president whispered, "Boss, say the word." But the president didn't speak. He simply exhaled, slow, steady, deadly. And that was enough. The serpents split into two groups. A few circled the back to block exits. Others stayed hidden behind crates, waiting for the first sign. Inside, the drug dealer, thin, twitchy, high on ego, paced around the girl, flashing a knife as if it impressed someone. He didn't know death was already standing outside his door. The president signaled again. One brother slid a tiny inspection mirror under the door to check positions. Another placed a hand on the door's rusty locking chain. The vice president mouthed, 3, 2, patent. No loud crash, no big entrance. Just a slow, deliberate push. The door squeaked open like the beginning of a horror scene. The bikers walked in with the calmness of men who had already accepted what needed to be done. The drug dealer froze mid-sentence. His men stiffened, their confidence collapsing like wet paper. The president stepped into the light. Rainwater dripped from his jacket onto the concrete. His eyes were dead calm. "Where is my daughter?" His voice wasn't loud, but it vibrated through the room like a threat wrapped in ice. The entire warehouse fell silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And that moment, that deadly pause, was the true beginning of the confrontation. For a heartbeat, the world froze. The drug dealer's eyes darted from one biker to another, thick leather vests, steel rings, scarred knuckles, dead serious expressions. Predators. All of them. He swallowed hard. Look, we can talk." He never finished. The vice president moved first, a blur of black denim and fury. His punch landed with a crack that echoed off the metal walls. The dealer flew backward into a stack of crates, coughing blood, the knife clattering away uselessly. Chaos erupted, but it wasn't a fight. It was an execution of precision. Two bikers lunged at the guards near the door. No wasted motion, no shouting, just sharp, brutal impacts, a knee to the gut, an elbow to the jaw, a neck pinned against the wall until the man went limp. The president didn't move. He walked, slow, silent, straight toward his daughter. Her eyes widened as she saw him, tears mixed with relief. Her lips trembled. "Dad." His hand gently touched her cheek, the first softness he'd shown all night. Then he turned, and everything inside him changed. He looked at the drug dealer, broken, groaning, struggling to stand, and something ancient, something primal, crept into his eyes. The president walked toward him with a calmness that made every man in the room feel colder. The dealer tried bargaining. It was just business. I swear, your guys messed with my deal, so You took my daughter." The president's voice was a controlled growl. "That wasn't business." He grabbed the dealer by the collar and dragged him across the floor like he weighed nothing. The man screamed as his back scraped against broken glass. A biker kicked a chair toward the president. He caught it, flipped it around, and shoved the dealer into it. Zip ties wrapped around the man's wrists faster than he could even protest. The president leaned in close, so close the dealer could feel his breath. "You hurt a child." A pause. "My child." He straightened up and nodded once. The signal. The vice president stepped forward, cracking his knuckles with a dark grin. Other bikers spread out, blocking exits, forming a silent wall. The dealer begged, Please don't kill me. I'll give you money, product, anything." But the bikers weren't listening. Justice wasn't a negotiation. What happened next was fast. A blur of fists, a boot slamming into ribs, a forearm smashing a jaw, a scream cut short by a brutal chokehold. Every blow was controlled, calculated, not revenge, correction. Within minutes, the dealer collapsed, broken, defeated, shivering on the cold concrete. The president knelt, grabbed the man's chin, and forced him to look up. If you ever go near a child again, you won't walk away. He stood and turned to his daughter, lifted her gently into his arms. Behind him, bikers dragged the unconscious men into a corner, throwing their weapons into a pile. The warehouse was silent again, except for the slow, heavy breathing of men who had delivered justice. The storm had finally passed. Outside the warehouse, the wet concrete shimmered under the streetlights. The night felt different now, lighter, cleaner, like the world exhaled after holding its breath too long. Engines idled softly, their low rumble echoing through the empty industrial streets like the heartbeat of a brotherhood that refused to break. The president stepped out first, carrying his daughter in his arms. Her head rested against his chest, eyes half closed, exhaustion softening her breathing. For the first time tonight, he wasn't a leader. He wasn't a symbol. He was simply a father, relieved, shaken, human. His brothers formed a quiet corridor for him to walk through. Not a single man spoke. They didn't need to. Respect lived in their silence. At the edge of the road, he gently placed his daughter on his bike, wrapping her in his own leather jacket. She clutched it tightly, burying her face in it. "Dad," her voice trembled, barely a whisper. "I knew you'd come." He placed a hand on her cheek, his voice low and steady. "No one touches you. Not today. Not ever." A younger biker approached, eyes softer than the others, carrying a bottle of water and a blanket. He wrapped it around her shoulders with a gentle smile before stepping back respectfully. One by one, the brothers began preparing to leave. Some tightened gloves, some checked their chains, others simply looked toward the horizon, the rage inside them cooling down to embers. The vice president stood beside the president, arms crossed. He nodded toward the warehouse. "What do we do with them?" The president didn't look back. He didn't need to. The dealer and his men weren't a threat anymore. "Leave 'em." A beat. Let them remember who they crossed. It wasn't mercy. It was punishment. Living long enough to fear the consequences every single day. He turned back to his daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You okay to ride, sweetheart?" She nodded slowly. He lifted her onto the bike, climbed on behind her, and wrapped one arm protectively around her. The other hand twisted the throttle lightly, the engine growling to life beneath them. The brothers formed formation instantly, 2 lines, equal distance apart, creating a protective tunnel around the president and his daughter. The vice president called out, "Serpents, roll out!" Engines roared in unison, a thunderous salute, not to war, but to survival. As they rode through the night, the girl leaned back against her father, eyes closing, finally safe. The city lights reflected on wet asphalt, painting the road gold and red. The bikers didn't speak. They didn't celebrate. They just rode, slow, steady, united. At the end of the street, the president whispered a single line to his daughter, just loud enough for her to hear. "In this world, family isn't blood. It's who rides for you in the dark." And with that, the serpents disappeared into the quiet night, leaving behind only the fading echo of engines and a promise that no one would ever touch her again.